Will Tolheimer. Welcome. I decided recently, I'm in my golden years now and I have limited time left. How can I make a contribution? How can I make sure that some of the things that I've learned along the way don't get lost? So I decided to do a video series. I'm calling it Will's Gold. I know that's a little bit over the top, but hey, golden years, Will's Gold, you get it. And so the first topic I'm going to talk about is retrieval practice. And I'm talking about this because it's really important, one of the most important concepts in the learning sciences. And also, it takes me back a long way. I first started talking about retrieval practice in, I think it was 97, 98, when I was an employee of the strategic management group and talking just internally with our team to make sure that our simulations, et cetera, and our learning programs were aligned with the research. And then I gave my first public presentation about retrieval practice back in 2003. I believe it was at the e-Learning Guild, one of their inaugurating conferences. So here we go. I'm going to talk about retrieval practice. Okay, this is Will's Gold, the very first video of the series, number 1. Now, before I jump in here, I hope you allow an old man to reminisce a little. This was it. This was one of those original presentations. Did this at the e-Learning Guild back on the 12th of November, 2003. And I was a new father back then, and I even showed a picture of my young daughter. There she is, Elena Grace. All right, that's enough reminiscing. On to the main questions. Okay, you've got a 60-minute classroom training program just about developed. Then senior management says they want a 90-minute program instead, with 30 minutes added after the first hour. For the last 30 minutes, what's will be, that's not grammatical. What's will be the best use of the time? Add relevant content you couldn't cover before? Review key concepts from the first hour? Or C, ask questions about key concepts from the first hour? Now, make your answer. Make your answer. There's research to show it if you do that you will learn more deeply. Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Come on. Answer the question. Someone's always watching. And that someone is you. Okay, answer the question. Go ahead, roll it back. I know. Roll it back. Okay, let's do that again. Your answer choices are: add relevant content you couldn't cover before, review key concepts from the first hour, or C, ask questions about key concepts from the first hour. I will tell you what's not the answer. A, adding relevant content you couldn't cover before. This one here is not the answer. Let's try another one. Okay, so what would produce the best long-term remembering? Here are your choices. Provide extra review, provide extra questions with no feedback, or provide extra questions with feedback. Which of these is the best choice? Well, the best choice is obvious, right? Answer C, clearly going to be much better. So let's just get rid of that one. Now you must choose between these two. Which of these will create the superior results, the best long-term remembering? The correct answer is B, extra questions with no feedback. Now you're thinking probably, what? But feedback's so important. Absolutely, feedback is very important, but retrieval practice is so powerful that it creates benefits even without feedback. It creates more benefits with feedback, but even without feedback, it creates massive benefits. Let me share with you some research on retrieval practice. You can go ahead, take a look. Now, I know you can't read that. I'm just showing you there's a ton of research out there. I just grabbed this from a research report I did a few years ago, but there's tons more. Let's dive into two studies. This was a classic study by Jones back in 1923-24. What he did was he had people, and many people, these were college students, gave them a lecture, 60 minutes of classroom lecture, or 55 minutes of classroom lecture, and 5 minutes answering questions. No feedback at all. And yet, you can see there's like a over 50% improvement in the learning results because of retrieval practice alone. Here's another study by Butler and Roediger. And what they did, they gave people either extra review or retrieval practice with no feedback or retrieval practice with feedback. This basically mirrors the question I asked you. We all agreed retrieval practice with feedback would be the best, but look at this. Look at this. This is more than doubling learning results by getting retrieval practice. A very powerful thing, this retrieval practice. Now, we who are learning architects, we know about retrieval practice. We've seen it in these type of questions. We've also seen it in these type of learning activities. In fact, these over here, this is really what we'd call realistic practice because they add the context, the realistic performance context back into the instructional design. This is ideal. These will help. I like to use a metaphor to explain the cognitive foundations of remembering. So imagine you're in your workplace and you're trying to remember something. And here's the metaphor. So this is your brain. It's filled with trees. Each tree represents some critical information, but it looks sort of undifferentiated, right? Where is that information you need? Well, it's hard to find if there's no pathway to it. So what you do is you actually figure it out. You get there, you get the information, you walk back, you're stepping back on the undergrowth, and you leave a little bit of a mark. Now, maybe that will help you the next time you go search through memory. But what would be better? Ideally, we want to give people some substantial retrieval practice so they get a path through memory that looks like this, much easier to find the information. Or we create a wider path through memory by giving substantially more retrieval practice. Now look at this path. This path is fairly unlikely to be overgrown by the undergrowth. Now, here's another part of the metaphor. If nobody walked down that pathway in the forest, what would happen? Eventually, that pathway would disappear. It would become overgrown in itself. What do we call that in memory? We call that forgetting. So ideally, we're giving substantial, lots and lots of retrieval practice, realistic practice, so it's authentic. We want to do that over time. And then sometimes some of our content is so important that ideally we'd like to create a superhighway through memory. Maybe something that looks like this. Not exactly a superhighway, but you can see that this pathway is much less likely to be overgrown, much less likely to enable forgetting. We want remembering, not forgetting. One of the best ways to support remembering is with retrieval practice. So just to put some icing on the cake here, this is a top-tier scientific journal. These are some of the top researchers in the training and development field. They did a review of the research and they said this: we know from the body of research that learning occurs through the practice and feedback components. Practice should be realistic, providing lots of authentic retrieval practice for our learners, and then giving them feedback to make sure they avoid misconceptions in their work. Now, why Why is this retrieval practice so important in the first place? Well, let's take a look at that. Okay, here we have our learning situation. This is during learning. This is a learning opportunity that we have designed. And here is after learning on this side. Toward the top, this is where you and I have been more successful. We have created more remembering. That's great. In fact, I want to point out that our goal in learning design is not to create learning, but it's to create remembering. We're more successful here at the top. We're less successful here at the bottom. So now let's share a learning curve and a forgetting curve. This is how people learn. It takes them a while. They get up there, and then fairly soon afterward, they begin forgetting. This is a very steep learning curve. This is very common. Most people have that happen to them. This is not good, right? Let's think about this. We've got our learners. They start there. They go up the learning curve, but then they slide down the forgetting curve. Have we maximized the learning benefits? Well, clearly no. They've started here and ended up more or less in the same place. That's not good. That's a failure on our part. So ideally, we hope that there's something we can do to minimize this forgetting curve. Forgetting. Now, we can do things during learning and after learning that minimize that forgetting curve. We ought to be doing those things. Retrieval practice is one of those things. Ideally, we're creating learning and after learning so people continue to learn on the job. This after learning future depends on two things: the design of the learning and the after learning follow-up. Retrieval practice is something we do in designing our learning. It's not the only thing we can do. I'll talk about other design factors we can use in other videos in the future, but retrieval practice is important to help people minimize their forgetting curve and preferably continue learning in their work. All right, one more thing. I wrote about retrieval practice in the CEO's Guide to Training, E-Learning, and Work, Empowering Learning for a Competitive Advantage. And I'm going to share with you on my Substack. I will share with you a chapter from the book, including the chapter notes, The Amazing Power of Learning Research, Retrieval Practice. I'll share that with you. Obviously, I can't attach it to the video, but I'll share it in my Substack and on the Work Learning Research website. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, this is Will Tolheimer. That was my Gold Series first video. I hope you liked it. Now, let's think about this. If you want to remember what I just talked about, would you listen to the video again, or would you do something else? That's right, something else. Retrieval practice. All right, see you down the road.